Good morning, everyone. Calling the Southborough Board of Health meeting to order on Tuesday, May 6, 2025 at 11 a.m. 2 out of 3 board members are present, but I'm expecting the third shortly. First order of business is the approval of the 4/8/25 minutes. Are there any changes to those?
No, not on my end.
Okay, me either. So I'll move that we accept the 4/8/25 minutes as presented.
And I'll second and vote aye.
And Malinowski's aye. Thank you. All right, next order of business is Neary Building, the special town meeting preparation. So I put this on the agenda. There's a special town meeting Saturday morning at 9 a.m. at okay. Liz joined, but she will actually join us in a second. So I'll start over. So there's a special town meeting on Saturday, May 10th at 9 a.m. at Algonquin to discuss the proposed Neary building project. And there's been a lot of public meetings and discussions happening, especially in the last few weeks, and some forums. But just to remind everyone that there was a meeting on July 22nd, 2024, that PAR engineers and our DPW director, Bill Cundiff, presented at to address concerns around the Parkerville landfill that is adjacent to the current Neary building, as well as where the proposed Neary building is slated for. And in addition to that, on April 16th, there was an open forum that Chris Craig attended, who's our new inspector, as well as Bill Cundiff from DPW and PAR, who's our consultant that does all the testing related to the landfill. So those two videos, and this is for the public, are available on YouTube for your review. The July meeting's about 23 minutes and the public forum's about 2 hours. So I've asked Mark Davis, who's on the Neary Building Committee, to join us this morning, just to give a high-level overview of all the current testing that is being done and has been done since the landfill was capped in about 2000, as well as explain what their mitigation steps that are being proposed to be put in place should the Neary building proposal pass on Saturday. And just to be clear, for the Board of Health, this is DPW really and Bill Cundiff really own making sure that the testing happens on a regular basis, which Mark will allude to the cadence of that. And the Board of Health would get involved should there be any concern or issue around the results of that testing or any other issues that should arise. But I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page and that, that Mark have another opportunity in public to explain what the mitigation is. So with that, I will bring Mark over. Hi, Mark. Thanks for coming. Can't hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning. So myself, Liz Zulik, and Safdar Medina are the Board of Health. So we thank you for coming this morning. And we've been following the meetings that have been happening and re-reviewed the tapes that were from the July meeting and from the forum. Unfortunately, we couldn't come to the forum because of the snafu with the website, but we did have a meeting posted, and thankfully Chris was able to attend. So if you just want to give a general overview of the current testing that's done at the site today and what the mitigations are being put in place with the proposed new building, that'd be great.
Okay. Just to let you know, the sound on that meeting you referenced is horrible. I suffer from spring allergies, and I had a voice that night, but it was lousy. rain is my friend and I've got a voice today. So that's a good thing. If you could get the PowerPoint up, I can kind of walk you through what's there and what we're doing, and then open it up to whatever questions you have.
Okay. Barbara, do you mind sharing this slide deck?
I can do it. She may be on a call.
Okay.
And the best slide to start with would be slide 11.
Okay.
And just a quick, I can keep talking while I'm waiting for the slides, but it was one, I've got 45 years of construction, business, land development. I have run residential and commercial divisions. And one of the reasons I volunteered to be on the committee was exactly what we're talking about. Of concern that we have a school relatively in close proximity to a landfill.
This one here.
We'll get to this, but let's go back a slide. One more. The other way.
Oh,
Although
sorry.
these are all good. That one. Nope. Back one.
Back one from this.
Yes. There you go.
Okay.
This kind of gives you a quick overview, and if you look carefully, you'll see the existing school, and you'll see an outline where the new school is proposed. To the bottom, slightly cut off in the slide, is the landfill with one monitoring well right along Parkerville Road, way in the left corner of the site. There you go, right there. There is also a monitoring well closer to the school, right down that one, which is part of that one, the one to the right, the one in front, and several down Parkerville are all part of the annual maintenance and testing for the landfill. The monitoring wells in the back of the building, to be honest, I think those were put in place by the Board of Health when the original septic system was put in to the left top of the screen. And then on the right side, those 3 monitoring wells were put in place, I'm going to say in 1997, to cover any conditions with the septic system being up high. And I don't have any record that people were actually testing these things. I think they were there more for insurance with the septic than anything else, but we can come back to that. Between the school and the landfill, right where your cursor is now, is a wetland area. And you can see a little stream to the right. So anything that flows off of the landfill's higher than that wetland. Anything on surface flows get captured into that wetlands. Anything below grade gets stopped by the wetlands and gets pulled north and east, which is to the right and down away from the school. So we have probably, out of the last 30 years, we probably have 25 years of testing, deep water testing and annual surface water testing, which is done as part of the program that DPW does. And it's that close monitoring well that really gives us an indication of what's going on the site. There's low-level materials that have been consistently there. And according to PAR, not anything of concern. And it's necessary to note that anytime the testing has been done, all the results go to DEP. DEP looks them over and makes any recommendation, raises any red flags, and I'm not aware of any red flags being raised. So that's kind of an overview, and I can go through a slide. I think slide 12. Well, 12 is the septic. Let's go to slide 9, so it's 2 slides back. There you go. Basically, yeah, basically what we're proposing at the school as sort of another level of protection is, and it's down in the features part on the left-hand side. Under the building, we will provide, obviously, any unsuitable fill that's below the building will be removed, and suitable fill to support the school will be put in its place. There's an expectation that we're going to have to remove materials, because whatever's there probably won't support a 2-story school. But essentially, we'll put adequate drainage material under the school. There will be a vapor barrier under the foundation. There will be a radon gas monitoring and venting system under the school, which should be a normal practice. That will also serve, and it's an impossible situation, but if this material, for some reason, 80 feet down, that is emitting methane or carbon monoxide, it's not there. But that system of radon would also be able to monitor those gases as well. The gases in the landfill are tested 4 times a year. And that's just for the sheer gases that are coming up and out. That system really doesn't have any impact beyond kind of the circle around the old landfill. We will also have the ability to, because of high groundwater down there, groundwater is somewhere between, I'm going to say 2 and 4 feet below grade. We are proposing to put in a system that'll keep the groundwater from ever coming up close to the foundation and physically pulling that material or that water out. And then on another slide, slide 14. Here we go. We are also proposing 3 monitoring wells right in front of the school. And this is just insurance protection. And I'll get into how we actually monitor them. This also gives you an indication how close that existing monitoring well is. Currently, it's 290 feet from the corner of the school. We're going to be a little bit closer at 260. But no professional has indicated that that's an issue. Again, the surface flows all go north and east, and the groundwater flows also go north and east. And that's where, if you did hear in that presentation, I've made a comment that I have never made in my life, that wetlands are our friend. And this particular wetland between the landfill and the school intercepts an awful lot and pulls it away. It's been doing it for 30 years and there's no expectation that it's going to work any differently. The wetlands to the north between Trottier and along Parkerville are a magnificent resource to pull any of the materials and settle them out. One of the concerns we have, and if you go to the next slide, is we are proposing to put in a geothermal HVAC system. It's all sourced from the ground. We've given you somewhat of a visual. Here's the location potentially of those well fields. We recognize that we need to come back to you when we get to the stage of designing this and permitting this. But we're really looking at 650-foot deep wells in a closed loop system where we're taking the environmentally friendly material inside the pipes, dropping it into the ground, and during the winter, being able to pull the heat out of the ground to economically heat the building. And during the summer, pulling the cool nature of that water into the building to effectively and efficiently cool the building. Just as a quick overview, our committee set some goals very early in this process. And there are 4 goals in the school: that it needs to be as safe as possible, that the school needs to be as healthy as possible, that we need to meet or exceed the educational needs of the economy, of the school department, and it needs to be of a sustainable design where we can actually try to lower the annual operating costs of maintaining and running this building. It's surprising, but health has taken somewhat of a high priority in building schools today. And this system will go a long way of providing a healthy environment, of bringing in outside air constantly into the building. And it becomes a critical part of our program, as well as being a sustainable resource that's less to maintain and easier and better to operate. If costs don't allow us to go forward, there is a way we could drop down to a normal chiller system with a looped water system. It's not quite as efficient, but it can be done within our budgets. So this kind of gives you the overview. There are some other slides in here, and I can refer to them based on your questions, but I hope that helps. There is one other issue which is related, and I've said it a number of times in a public meeting. It goes beyond my role and the role of the building committee, but this is a terrific opportunity at this point to take on the fact that DEP now is basically stating that they will continue to monitor our program of maintenance to the landfill. They'll be monitoring it in perpetuity, so that the program just doesn't end at the end of 30 years. It just keeps going. It's a good time for us to sit back and say, okay, what can we do to strengthen the role of the town and make sure we're doing this properly? There's a title issue there. The landfill sits in the school department's title. I believe it needs to be pulled out. So we're going to have to go back in and correct some town meeting action that was done in the 90s and actually pull this out, keep it in the town land, but it puts it under the control. It can be joint control, however we set it up, but it puts it really under the DPW. where it belongs, so it doesn't slip through the cracks. As far as the programs that I'm setting up, I'm suggesting that after if we're getting to the stage whether we're getting close to building the school, the town as a whole, Board of Health, Recreation, DPW, and maybe sitting down with DEP and making sure that we're doing everything possible to ensure that we have a safe school, but also set up a maintenance program. So that clearly the responsibilities are set going forward and we have a program where we communicate regularly. The school department should just be informed. They shouldn't be the ones driving this. And I think it's a good time to set that up. In my own personal opinion, if we have any exposures down there, the exposures are that field right at the bottom of the hill. And that can be addressed during our analysis of how we're going to move forward. And it's my opinion, we need to better protect the wetlands in there. We need to better keep access out of those wetlands. We may need to raise that fence. So if there's an errant soccer ball that goes over the net and into the wetlands, we don't want people to go in there and get it. So we really need to look carefully at that field. It's not a school field, it's a park and a rec field. The school uses it. So I think it's a good problem to have because I think we can manage that risk. And if we find that field doesn't belong there as a town, we need to make that decision. So I think we have covered all the bases. And with Chris's help, when we get to the next stage of actual design, there is no reason that I wouldn't suggest that we bring DEP and we bring power engineering in and we sit down and have, is this what we should be doing? Is this what we can do? And is there something else that we might be missing? I don't think there is, but we need to go that extra step. I have lived in a town where a school did get contaminated underground, so I'm sensitive to these issues. But nature has a way of taking care of things, and I think all the right issues have been addressed, and we just need to put those down on paper, so moving forward, not forgetting anything. So that's essentially where we are. I can kind of show you where the septic system is being proposed. I can show you where we've taken borings and kind of dug into this thing and talk about that. But whatever questions you might have, I'm willing to get you the answers.
Great, thank you, Mark. Chris, do you have anything to add before we go to questions?
I would agree with Mark that sitting down with DEP definitely wouldn't hurt. I would agree. I have a feeling that they would say we're doing what we have to do. We've had a very robust monitoring plan for the past 30 years for this landfill. But of course, it doesn't hurt to get their input on it to see where they might want to see improvements and kind of what to look for in the future. But I think that's great. And I like you said, I do have a feeling they'd say kind of just keep doing what you're doing. But obviously, it doesn't hurt to do our due diligence.
Great, thank you. Liz, do you have any questions?
No, I just want to say thank you. I think it was super helpful for you to walk through all of this and your concerns and kind of your background. So I do appreciate that. And it's just helpful. It's a lot of great information. There's a lot of misinformation out there right now. So thank you for sharing it.
Thank you. Safdar, do you have any questions?
Yeah, there was just one line about this current, there was something about the soil right now under the current building needing some remediation or possible areas of that. I think it was in the summary. Is there anything, what is the soil condition under the building? I want to make sure I'm understanding that correctly, that there might some remediation needed under the current building.
Yeah, sure. If you get the slide back up, you can go to slide 5. But essentially what we've done is we've done at first we were proposing to put the school building to the right, out where the fields are now. And our first round of testing and soil borings were over that area. I think one more back. There you go. So on this map, boring 1, 2, 3, and 4 were primarily done initially. And we discovered that the soils there are unsuitable. And it doesn't mean anything other than they're sandy. We found no contamination. But what we found is general materials there that could not support a building. So we were looking at moving about 3 or 4 acres of land down 10 and 11 feet, well into the groundwater, and removing it and bringing in new material. The cost was exorbitant. We would have been looking at hundreds of trucks, and it just made no sense whatsoever. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not suitable to put a building on it in its present condition. So basing on the fact that we haven't seen any major cracking of the foundation of the existing school, we haven't seen any empirical data that indicates we have issues under there, we feel the best location is to utilize right where the school is. Yes, we're now requiring the ground to support a heavier school, so that we expect to remove materials under where we're putting the supporting structures. And that's just normal construction. We have, if you see the rest of the borings, 102, 103, and 104 were all typical sandy material. 101 was almost identical to what we found out in the fields. And we pulled the building as far from that location as we could. But yeah, we expect to, and we've got money in the budget to do some additional borings and really determine what's going on under that school. We'll know how high the groundwater is. We'll know how high to engineer any of the monitoring systems. And we recognize that we're going to have to remove material and bring in new material to make sure it supports the school. So I'm less concerned about that, but always, if there's an issue there that we need to deal with, and we'll know that well in advance of committing ourselves to getting this project to move forward.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Mark, I just have a few questions. In terms of if anything were to come up in the testing after the school is built, can you speak to the system that is being put in place related to the vapor barrier and how that mitigation will happen?
Yeah, that mitigation I look upon as an insurance policy. It's merely a smoke detector alarm that, hey, we got a problem. Let's quickly go in and determine what that problem is, and then make sure we can mitigate against that problem. There are additional engineering controls that if we ever reach that stage, that we can put into place to further protect this school. There's ways to redirect groundwater. There's ways to do it. But I don't think we're at that stage. If during construction we find something that is disturbing, we're going to stop the project right then and there and either find a way to deal with it or we move on. And that's with any project. We could be 90% assured that we're making the right decision. But if that 10% suddenly crops up and says, no, you're making a mistake, we'll deal with that mistake and the project doesn't move forward. So that there's always that risk.
Mhm.
But do I see it at this point with all the evidence and all the data we have? No, I really don't see it.
Okay. And in terms of bringing DEP in to have conversations with us, is it fair to say that DEP oversees all of, like, they get our reports every year, we submit them, so it's not like we're just bringing them in now, like, they've been involved all along and they hold us to a standard. And so you just be looking for additional feedback in, outside of what we get on a regular basis.
Yeah, and to be honest, the whole idea of a landfill cap was new science 30 years ago. And there's a lot of these caps in the state, and it's evolving science. And there is nothing wrong with us relying on DEP to say, look, we've got a school within 260 feet of one of the monitoring wells. We don't see anything there. We can rely on their science to support what we're doing and perhaps even offer additional suggestions, and we're open to that. And I think that's an important conversation at some point in time.
Yeah, okay. And I just have one other comment that I've had conversations with Bill Cundiff, who has a long history dealing with landfills, so he is very versed in this area. And have spoken to him and council about the fact that the landfill is actually under the care and control of the school committee, and both council and Bill have responded that it is under, that DPW does own making sure that the testing will happen. So I'm not overly concerned about that at this point. I think it's something that we should get cleaned up, but it's, you know, Bill has come out in public too and said that DPW owns this, and he seems pretty hands-on, and you know, PAR has been at several public meetings as well. So
I've worked with Bill for 30 years. I think we have found somebody that really knows exactly what he's doing, and I
Yeah.
respect his advice. He and I have had several conversations. He recognizes that we have some more work to do, and we'll do that work. The title being one issue.
agreed. Okay. Taylor, do you have any questions for Mark? Okay. Any
No,
other
thank
final,
you.
any other final questions or comments from the board? Okay, so our involvement really doesn't start until after if this project passes or not. So, but we appreciate you coming, Mark and Chris, your involvement with getting up to speed, given that you've been here a couple months now. So thanks, Mark, for joining, and we'll see you on Saturday.
I can assure your board, as I've assured the planning board, as I've assured the Conservation Commission, we recognize that we have a responsibility to come back to you for all the permits. It's probably the first time any project like this has really consulted any impacts, and the same relies with our work with you guys. We recognize it, and we'll be back and consult and design right to your regulations.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Mark.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Is it okay if we let Michaela go next?
Yes. So we're going to move to number 8, the Greater Boroughs Public Health Budget Options. Am I right, Taylor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, Michaela, I'm going to bring you over. And I don't know that have we had Michaela in a meeting yet?
I'm the wrong person to ask.
No.
We haven't?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So here's Michaela. Michaela is our new shared service coordinator for the Greater Borough. So she took Isabella's old position. She's funded through the PHE grant between the boroughs and Boylston. So there's a lot going on right now on the financial side with Greater Borough. So Taylor and I thought it would be great if Michaela could come and give the board an update to then give Taylor and I direction on how Southborough wants to proceed with any decisions related to the FY26 budget. So welcome, Michaela. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here. Happy to meet all of you. And as Chelsea said, kind of just going over the budget options. So I have a slide that I'll share just to kind of show visually what those options are. Everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we've kind of been trying to project out for the next fiscal year, making sure that whatever we do kind of at the end of this fiscal year to spend down funds, we're not signing ourselves up for things that we can't sustain, which did open up this question of moving forward with different types of staffing and contracts. So I'll kind of go over the two options and how our current fiscal year is operating to give some context, and then happy to answer any questions that you all have. So these two kind of lighter colored columns are for fiscal year 25, so our current year. In this far left column is what we budgeted, and then to kind of show where we're at, the middle column is what we spent so far. The biggest change has been staffing, just due to some delay in hiring. And then we kind of overestimated fringe, but then ended up spending a little less than we anticipated. And then the salmon contract, which we currently have our nursing services through, which provides 30 hours a week. And then also a 45 an hour per diem rate for additional services as needed, like trainings and flu clinics. And then we have our inspectional software for food and housing inspections. And then this last one is where a majority of the shift happened for supplies, training, and health communications. Since we had that kind of delay in hiring, we shifted some of the funds to that, which has allowed us to spend some more on nursing supplies, like buying EpiPens for vaccine clinics. We've also spent additional funds on trainings. We'd originally budgeted roughly $3,000 for trainings. And this year we ended up spending $14,000 on trainings, a lot of really good trainings for shared staff as well as municipal staff. So that's kind of the overview of where we're at this year. So looking at next year, there's kind of two options. This first option here in green is essentially keeping the status quo of staffing in terms of continuing to contract with Salmon for all of our nursing services, keeping that 30 hours a week. Their per diem rate will change in the next fiscal year, increasing to $75 an hour for any services that we use outside of what we already have contracted. And then the staffing cost is for myself and Michael for the full fiscal year, and kind of with the same fringe benefit package. The major difference in this option would also be including additional software for data visualization and coordinating nursing services. And then just to kind of keep these two options comparable, we went with the budgeted amount of supplies, training, and health communications. So that's option one. We would still come in under budget by about 11,000. One thing to note for both of these options is it doesn't include the ClearPath contract, which is additional support for hoarding cases. That's about $8,000 a year. We wanted to double check and make sure it was an allowable expense for the next fiscal year. So we didn't know that when we created this, but it is an allowable expense and would be something we could add in with option 1. And then for option 2, we have hiring a 16-hour nurse. 16-hour a week nurse at $48 an hour, and maintaining the same in contract, but kind of reducing it to allow for additional funds for the direct hire nurse. So that would increase kind of the overall staffing cost, but the fringe would stay the same since that would be a part-time position. And then with this option, we wouldn't have the additional budget for some of the software. We could potentially add in a lower cost nursing software to use. So that would be the difference software wise, but we would still keep the inspectional services software. And then again, that training and health communication, we just kept it the same to kind of be able to compare these options. And so with that, we would come in slightly under budget with just a little over $2,000 remaining in our budgeted amount. And that wouldn't cover the ClearPath contract, but could cover some other nursing supplies. So that's a lot of numbers, a lot of information, but happy to answer any specific questions or kind of go through any information that wasn't clear.
Thanks, Michaela. I have a bunch of questions, but does anybody else have any first? Okay. Michaela, on the estimated fringe of 95,000 for FY25, is that actual reduced because we had a full-time nurse position in the 95?
I think it was the full-time nurse, and we estimated like all the staff that were hired. So myself and the potential nurse would select the family package.
Okay.
So that was like the absolute maximum amount.
Okay.
And then that shifted.
So is the 54 the full year cost for the employees that we currently have today? Or is that only through a certain period of time?
That's only through, I mean, it's for the remainder of this fiscal year, but because I wasn't hired until November, it's just for myself, that allotment of time, if that makes sense.
So the 57,000 concerns me because at least on the Southborough side, which I'm assuming was the same on the Northborough side, we saw a very large increase for year over year for insurance. So do you know why it's only 57?
So when we accounted for that, ours also went up by, I think, like 17%.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And so when we used the formula that our financial department gave us, this was the total for all of next fiscal year. We could always kind of increase that by a couple thousand to make sure we have room. But this was based on the formula they gave us.
Yeah, Chelsea, I'm pretty sure this is pretty accurate.
Okay. It just seems low if the 54,000 isn't the full year for FY25.
I agree. I've double checked this a couple of times because I felt the same way. But I think especially because I only have an individual plan, like I don't have a family plan, that shift isn't quite as dramatic as it would be if both Michael and I had family plans.
Okay.
I think one has family and one does not.
Okay. Okay. My second question is on the salmon contract line.
Mm-hmm.
So for the option 1, so is that for a full-time nurse at $45 an hour, which is contracted through Salmon, plus we would be spending $75 an hour for a per diem nurse?
Yes. So the 30 hours a week is Penny, the regional nurse.
Yep.
And then the $75 per diem would be any CPR trainings. If we did the breastfeeding workshops again with a lactation consultant, and then any additional support that we would use for flu clinics.
So what's the per diem rate for FY25? Do you know?
I think it was 45. Yeah.
45?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned about going up $30 an hour. That's just a comment. I think that's astronomical, and I don't know that I would vote for that. I think that's crazy. Okay. My next question is for the clear path contract that you referenced.
Mhm.
Can you, I don't know that this board has heard what ClearPath is for. Can you just give an overview of what it's for, and for the 8,000 a year, what that would cover the 4 towns for?
Yeah, so for ClearPath, that is 4 hours a week of technical support on any hoarding cases. Isabella's more versed on the details because I know that she worked through that contract, but essentially it provides that 4 hours a week of additional support in managing hoarding cases.
Okay, and how many houses would that cover in the 4 hours, do they estimate?
That, I'll be honest, I don't have an answer for. I know hoarding cases can be very time intensive. So I think depending on the severity of the case, that could be anywhere from one individual case to 4 lighter cases. But like I said, I wouldn't take that with a grain of salt. That's outside of my area of expertise.
Okay. And then one final question before I give
Mhm.
my full opinion, unless anybody else has any questions. This, for FY25, we had fully budgeted a 40-hour-a-week nurse. Is that right? And the goal, good.
I think, yeah,
we
I wasn't
did.
here for that.
So we haven't been able to fill that.
Right.
The goal for FY26 would have been to eliminate the salmon contract 30-hour a week and replace it with a full-time nurse, or to keep both?
We would have, or Taylor, you can fill in the gaps. From my understanding, we would have kept both. The
Okay.
salmon contract would have been on contact tracing
Right.
funds. But because that's been paused, we've had to shift
Correct.
things.
Oh,
And
okay.
then the other reason why the nurse, so we would kept the 30 hours under contact tracing, which is what it is in currently. But we couldn't do that. And because we were unable to fill the 40-hour nurse position, we were trying to get software for nursing for the end of FY25, which just didn't end up happening because for many, many reasons. But
Yeah.
so we shifted to look into what that would cost and then reduce the hours of the nurse position potentially, which is what's an option 2, is to hire a 16-hour nurse, or the software options varied price. So that's like, if you look at option 1 versus option 2, one of the softwares is much more expensive and gives you more options of I don't know, that's Michaela's thing, like the interpretation of the data, like doing a lot of like behind the scenes like analysis.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I am concerned with going from a budgeted 40-hour-a-week nurse to a 16 and potentially eliminating the position. So I think it's a tough pill to swallow. I mean, there was a reason why we went for a 40-hour-a-week nurse for the borough. So going to a 16 isn't great. I would not be in favor of getting rid of that position altogether. So that's just kind of my initial thought on that. And then in terms of the hoarding contract, if it's truly 1 to 4 houses a week, I think that's also a hard position to have shared, because who gets priority if it's 1 a week, if it's a complex case. So I guess before I would be in favor of that, I would want to understand how that resource would be allocated and how you get in the queue if you do have a hoarding case, but it's already used up in a town for that week. So I'm just not sure that that's the right resource that we should be sharing. And then in terms of the software, I think it would be great to go with the one that's more dynamic, but if we, I think we need to prioritize, like, do we want the nurse or do we want the higher quality software? So I guess I'll open it up to the board. Go ahead, Safdar.
Yeah, so I just want to go back to a couple of things. The $75 an hour, is that because you're looking for more specialized staff, like that difference in that per diem, like you mentioned, lactation or things like that? So where did that increase come from?
Yeah, so that was just a salmon, like in their next year, that's kind of a blanket, their new per diem rate.
So it wasn't anything like, so we may not necessarily get, like, would a lactation consultant then cost more, or is that going to be their sort of standard per diem rate for anybody they send?
Yeah, so that's their standard per diem rate. The reason why they did that is because we hadn't updated our agreement with them since we started.
No, that makes sense. I just wanted to confirm that. And then, and I guess, going back to the issue with hoarding, one of the things, would it help to see how much we had last year before we decide on, like how many hoarding cases were in Northborough, Southborough, and what was the cost? Because again, I'm not sure how much, I don't know enough to know how much it costs per se to devote funds to hoarding. And, again, if those funds could be used elsewhere, or would you need more in the town? I think, because again, those are crucial cases and time consuming as well.
And just to be clear, Safdar, it's us, Northborough, Boylston, and Westborough.
Right. So it's
So
A,
it's
enough, and B, like, how much where's the need for it?
Right.
How much were there? That might help in deciding that.
Yeah.
And I will say, I remember this as we were talking about it. The ClearPath contract is a referral-based service. So they offer services to anyone in our 4 towns. And part of our payment is covering individuals who are referred and like can't pay. So there is some needs-based assessment where if someone could pay for the services, then that doesn't come out of our budget, if that makes sense. But that's kind of to be able to provide that safety net in some ways for people that might not be able to access the services.
Okay. And then, I guess, the more nursing hours we get, the better. The 16 versus 40, like Chelsea was saying, is it really just an issue of finding somebody at this point in terms of doing that? Like finding a right candidate, like how, I guess I just want to understand the full reasoning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, finding someone is a challenge. The other challenge, we did look at what the cost would be to hire a full-time nurse on this contract, especially with the benefit increase. That really would cut down a lot of other areas of the budget to kind of bare bones in terms of supplies and trainings if we were to hire a full-time nurse. We also were kind of assuming trying to pay competitively in terms of an hourly rate. So with those two things, it didn't seem like a financial option, at least for fiscal year 26. I will say in 27, the state is rolling out they're calling it their data solution. It's called Metric. And that would replace the inspectional software, which would free up about an additional $30,000 in our budget that we could allocate elsewhere. So this is just fiscal year 26. Fiscal year 27, there is a little bit more possibility for things like that.
And the reason why, Safdar, we had the 40-hour-a-week nurse budgeted in FY 25 is because the salmon contract, that $70,000 was in contact tracing, right, Michaela?
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, yeah.
They were able to bring it over because we hadn't filled the position, and so anyways.
Well, we also had that position, Erin's position, so we were trying to refill that position.
Right.
I just spoke to Isabella quickly. She said, so our hoarding contract started in April, And we've had 4 cases across 2 towns that have been worked on so far.
Okay. I mean, I guess what I'm struggling with on that one is I just don't know that Southborough is going to get a benefit out of it. The other towns probably will, and I wouldn't have an issue with that if we weren't sacrificing something else that I think Southborough would get a benefit for. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. I would hate to give up more nursing time, because I think there's a value add there too. So that's kind of what I'm grappling with on that one. Liz, do you have any questions or comments on this?
No, I mean, I agree with the access to nursing and not to completely eliminate the position. I also, take into account the actual need. And if we've done without this role for a while and we're gonna have trouble recruiting it, like where's kind of the balance there? So just kind of grappling with both sides of that conversation, but yeah.
Taylor, anything else to add?
No, thanks, Michaela, for presenting. I think, it's helpful to hear from our board about what their preferences are, and then being able to take it back to the Greater Boroughs Board.
Yeah.
So thanks for answering all the questions. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Sorry we made you wait.
Yeah, sorry that it was a little longer than we expected.
No worries.
All right. All right, I'll try to speed things up. So next, I'm gonna take 6 health director performance evaluation.
Wait, pause for a minute. Sorry. Why don't we let Chris do his thing?
Oh,
Because
sure.
he's in Northborough today, so
Okay, so Chris, what are you doing? 4?
camps.
Okay. Can't hear you.
Hi there, sorry about that. I just had a quick update on camps today. Last month I sent out a memo to all potentially returning camps, to kind of inform them that there will be a deadline to get their applications in on May 16th. Since then, I've gotten majority of applications from who you'd expect. We're looking at about a half a dozen operators looking to plan camps in Southborough this summer. So a lot of people we'd expect, we'll have Southborough rec camps, St. Mark camps, Fay School camps, as well as some private organizations like Tim Morehouse Fencing, Trilogy Lacrosse, and NFEC Soccer. They've been good about getting their applications in. There's definitely a lot of documentation that's still going to be due, but that tends to be tougher to get further out. So as these camps kind of finalize who they're going to be using for employees, as well as getting their attendance put together, I'll begin looking over their documents such as the CORIs, SORIs, immunizations, physicals, all that fun stuff. So I don't anticipate any hangups. There's a couple camps last year that won't be returning this year. But yeah, we've got inspections in the books already planned for swimming pools as well as campgrounds on St. Mark's. And yeah, I don't anticipate we're going to have any major hurdles.
Great. Thank you. I know
Thanks,
Taylor's
Chris.
happy that you took that one over.
Yeah, no
Yes.
worries.
All right, next, do you want to do food permits?
Yeah.
Do we talk about that?
That was Barbara, so
No, but we have most food permits have come in. I still have some out there pending. I need to get in touch with Michael to find out if he wants to go after them or if I'm sending letters out. And some are for food trucks that'll be on the Rotary thing, 2 of them.
Okay, and those
So-
start tomorrow.
Mid-month, I believe the second to, I think it's 2 weeks in May, 2 weeks in June. It's at
Okay.
the end of the month, but I'll have to
Okay.
get in touch with Michael.
Okay. All right, so keep us posted if you need anything. All right, health director performance evaluation. So now that Taylor is on a contract that's executed by the Board of Health, we need to do a performance evaluation. So we have 2 options on how we can do this. We can assign 1 member to do this and then bring it to the board in draft form for the meeting. And then during the meeting, if there's any changes, additions, whatever, we can do that and then vote it at the end of the meeting. Or we can have all three of us do it individually and then somebody compile the all three of our performance evaluations into one and then present it at a meeting. Anybody have a preference? Go ahead, Safdar.
I like the idea of all three because I think that way we can have more of our individual input right away and,
Okay.
and be biased by the one like sometimes that can lead to a bias and then that way we can and if everyone else is okay with that, I think that's what my preference would be.
Fun.
Okay, so our next meeting is June 10th. So could you guys, if I send you a form, could you get it to me by June 3rd so that I can compile it and then get it back out for the meeting?
June 11th, right?
Did we move it?
We
moved
did.
it.
We
Thank you.
did.
I
I
didn't
have it,
update
yeah,
it.
June 11th at 12.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
that's
I didn't
correct.
update it in my calendar. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna stick to the 3rd though.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
All right, fine. So we'll do that. All right, cool. I just wanted, we just haven't had this yet, so I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure we talked about how we want to do it. Okay. Body Works regulations.
So Body Works regulations, I believe while I was away, Chris did look over them and had some comments that, did he share with the board or with Chelsea? I'm not sure. But I am looking back into picking them back up, and at some point in the next month, we will meet with Chief Newell to get his opinion on some of the things that reference the police in it, and go from there. So more to come. But we are actively working on them still.
Thank you. Mission statement.
So one of the things that I have been wanting to do is create a mission statement for the health department, as a lot of health departments have one. So I hope you all don't mind, but I did take the liberty to put one together, and then I can share it with you. And then if you have comments or you don't like it, that is fine. Just let me know. But I think it is important that our health department has a mission statement that reflects, you know, the work that we do here and what we strive to do. So do you want me to just share it, or?
Do you want to just email it to us and we'll get our comments back to you by the June meeting?
Sure.
Does that work for you guys?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 2 East Main Street project update. So we had our hearing last month, which technically we didn't need to do a hearing because we did not vote a variance. We just voted an increase in flow. But we posted for a hearing. And after the meeting that evening, 2 members of the public were inquiring on where and when the meeting was. So unfortunately, the abutters did not receive or did not believe that they received appropriate notice for our hearing. So I talked to counsel and he advised that we just redo the hearing, even though in technical terms, we didn't need to do a hearing. So that's why we moved our June meeting, which I already forgot about, to our June meeting to June 11th. So new notice will be issued and we will redo the hearing. So I just wanted the board to understand why we were doing that.
Will that meeting be remote?
Yeah.
Okay, just have to make sure. Got it.
Yeah.
Because
Thank
I
you.
do have to jump. So.
We're
Is there
done.
anything else you need me to? Okay, great.
We're done.
Sorry.
So our next meeting's June 11th. And then obviously we have a special town meeting on Saturday. And I think that's all we have for our schedule. And is there any public comment? Nope. All right. I move we adjourn at 12:05.
Second and vote aye.
Zula guy. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good day.